I turned my head sharply to look at Carol. "What did you just say?" I asked, not believing what I had just heard. "Dan, I know you're going to be angry, but I'm not feeling happy right now. I'm thinking about having a trial separation, so I can get my act together and figure out what I want," Carol said. I was standing on the veranda, grilling steaks. "My friend Karen has a spare room. She said I could stay with her for a while," Carol added. "When were you going to tell me, Carol? Or were you just going to leave me a note on my pillow tonight?" I said, my voice rising louder than I probably should have. "Don't raise your voice, Dan. I don't want Andy to hear this," she said. "Andy, our 6-year-old son, was inside. I knew you'd react this way," Carol said. "That's why I didn't want to bring it up until tonight. In other words, you've already decided to leave. Are you going to tell Andy? Or will I have to do it after you leave?" I asked sarcastically. "I'll tell him myself tonight before I go to bed," Carol replied. "It's not forever, you know," she added. "Well, yes, you're moving in with that ___ Karen," I snapped. I should have seen it coming. "Tomorrow," I said, "I'll prepare the papers. You sign them, and by Wednesday, I'll file them in court." "What papers?" she asked, confused. "Well, if you're going to leave, I want it to be a legal separation. Then, when you don't come back, it'll automatically become a divorce decree. That way, we don't have to go through all the hassle twice," I explained. "I don't want a divorce, Dan. Just some time to myself to sort things out." "That's all, honey," Carol said softly. "Carol," I spat back, "I've been asking you to talk to me for the last 4 months, but you've been too busy with Karen and your new friends to make time. Now, you want to move in with Karen to do what you probably wanted to do for the last 6 months." I was yelling now. "But you won't do that with my blessing. I'm not going to stand by and be made a fool of because of you or anyone else." I slammed the grill shut in anger. Things weren't going the way Carol had expected. She knew I would be angry, but she thought she could convince me that this would be good for both of us. Now, everything was blowing up in her face. "Dan, please," Carol said quietly, almost breaking down. I stormed off, leaving her standing there by the grill. She took the steaks off the grill, placed them on a plate, and went to look for me. She found me upstairs in our bedroom. I was tossing all of her clothes and belongings into the spare bedroom. "Take your ___ and get out." "I don't care anymore," I yelled at her. "I'll send the paperwork to your office. Sign it and get it back to Keith, the lawyer I've been dealing with for the last 6 years. Don't worry, I'll take Andy to dinner so he doesn't have to watch his mother abandon him," I said, grabbing my coat and heading for the door. I took Carol's hand and told her it was time to leave. She hesitated, not wanting to go just yet, and made a bit of a scene. "Carol, I'm leaving now. With or without you," I finally said, my voice firm. She softened, but I could tell she was furious. The drive home was tense, and we had a big argument. "You acted like you didn't care today," I said, my frustration growing. "I saw those guys wrapping their arms around you, and you didn't do anything to stop them. It was just innocent fun." "Nothing special," she replied. "It didn't look like that from where I was standing," I retorted, my anger rising. "How would you feel if I kissed and grabbed another woman like that?" She didn't have a good response, and I could tell she was too drunk to really understand what I was saying. Later that night, Carol felt sick. Luckily, she managed to take off her new dress before feeling unwell. By morning, she looked terrible and apologized to me, promising it would never happen again. But it did. I wasn't around much the next time. Carol began stopping by after work on Wednesdays for a bachelorette party with a group of girls, some married, some not. At first, she came home by 6:30, but over time, that stretched to 7:30 and then almost 9 o'clock at night. When Carol finally came home, Andy was already in bed, and I was not in the best mood. When we first got married, we were like teenagers, constantly wanting to be close. But now, it felt like if we had intimacy once a week, that would be considered frequent. On those Wednesday nights when Carol came home, It was clear she wasn't the same. Back then, we were both inexperienced, a little shy about trying new things, but over time, we learned what each other liked. Every week, however, Carol seemed to want to try something new, and I couldn't help but wonder where these ideas were coming from. She'd been drinking more, staying out later, but she knew exactly how to get me in a good mood. "Take me tonight, sweetheart," she said. "I just need to feel you." I did my best to please her, but it felt different. She seemed to enjoy it, but it was hard to ignore the unsettling feeling in the back of my mind. That week, after dinner, Andy and I went back to the empty house. I couldn't help but think about Carol's friend, Karen, and how her influence seemed to have changed Carol. It made me wonder what was really going on. I tucked Andy in and read him a story. When he asked about his mom, I told him she was visiting and would be home soon. But deep down, I wasn't so sure. I called my mom, updating her on the situation. "Mom, can you watch Andy during the day until I find someone permanent?" I asked. "Don't worry, honey," my mom replied. "Carol will be back soon. You know she can't stay away from Andy for long." But as much as I hoped she was right, I wasn't convinced. On Monday, I contacted Keith. "Carol has left," I told him. "I need to make sure I'm protected, including permanent custody of Andy. I wanted in writing that if one of us acts in a way a married spouse shouldn't, the other gets 65 to 35% of the assets. I think she's trying to cheat me, and I need to be covered." Keith seemed surprised. "Aren't you rushing things?" "She's only been gone a couple of days. Carol's been planning this for a while," I said. "Maybe this will bring her to her senses, but if not, I don't want to lose everything." "Okay, I'll start working on it tonight," Keith replied. "Anything else?" I paused, then added, "I'll need 2 more agreements, but I'll fax them to you later." The next day, when Carol returned to work, she was frustrated. She hadn't seen Andy in 2 days, which felt strange after 8 years. As she returned from lunch, a man was waiting for her in her office. "Carol Spencer?" he asked. "Yes, I'm Carol." "What's this about?" "You've been served," he said, handing her a thick envelope. Inside, Carol spent half an hour reading through the separation agreement, which looked more like divorce papers. The document stated that I would have full temporary custody of Andy, and she would be allowed visitation with reasonable notice. Carol was hurt more than angry. "I've been gone for 2 days, and he's already written off our marriage," she thought, feeling a knot in her stomach. She tried to call me, but my secretary said I was out, and my phone went straight to voicemail. Meanwhile, I was at home, changing the locks, dealing with finances, and crossing Carol's name off our insurance and 401k. By 4 o'clock, everything had changed. I had finished all my chores and picked up my cell phone. "Let's see what I have," I said to myself. There were 12 messages from Carol. Without hesitation, I deleted them all. I had dinner with Andy at my mother's house and shared what had happened. "Carol's mad as hell, Dan," my mom said. "If I were her, I'd be pissed too," I replied. "But I can't fix this marriage alone, especially when she won't listen to reason. She started this mess on her own. I swear, if I find out she's cheating on me, I'll end it. I used to trust her, but now I wouldn't believe a word she says. Right now, I'm just protecting myself and Andy. If we get back together, great. If not, I'll hold all the cards. Son, I've never seen this side of you. Remind me never to get on your bad side," Mom laughed. Later that evening, Carol stopped in front of the house and tried using the key. "What the hell?" she muttered to herself when she noticed a new lock. Frustrated, she dialed my number again. Before it went to voicemail, she left another message. Now it's done properly, I thought, ticking off the items on my checklist. Now, all I had to do was wait. The next morning, Carol arrived at my office. My credit cards aren't working, and when I stopped by to pick up a prescription, I was told I no longer have insurance. "Carol," I said, keeping my tone calm and nonchalant, "you left me. I'm paying for all the house and Andy's expenses, but you'll need to take care of yourself from now on. This way, we won't have any financial arguments. You let this get completely out of hand." Carol shouted, leaning over the table. I looked at her seriously and said, "Carol, do you see the word stupid tattooed on my forehead? I may not be the smartest guy in the world, but I wasn't born yesterday. Karen has you so turned around that you can't see straight. You think you can go out and act like you're single again without consequences? Think again. The first time I find out you broke your marital vows, we're done. Hell, you've probably already done that, so I don't even know why we're having this conversation. I'm so mad right now that I'm not thinking straight, so it's better if you just leave. I don't want to say anything that will make what's left of our marriage worse." With those words, I sat back. Carol was stunned and visibly angry. "You can't dictate to me like a little kid. I'm an equal partner in this marriage, so—" "Expletive you," she spat. "Well, in the last 6 months, that hasn't happened much either. I guess you're getting everything you need on the side now," I said loudly enough for her to hear. Her face reddened with anger, and she stormed out. I knew she hadn't cheated yet, but she was getting close. About a month ago, I started following Carol more closely. There had been some kissing and hand play, but nothing more yet. I knew she'd be thrilled living with Karen, so I wanted to make sure Carol understood the consequences if she crossed the line. The first 2 weeks were difficult. Carol made it a point to visit Andy, but she barely spoke to me. I kept an eye on her, but nothing new happened. She was still hanging out with Karen and her friends, but now it wasn't just Wednesdays. It was 4 nights a week. "Looks like someone's trying to catch up," I muttered to myself while reviewing the report. In the meantime, I found a nanny for Andy, a recent college graduate named Beth. She was a 23-year-old blonde, about 5 feet 9 inches with a slim build. She had a degree but struggled to find a full-time job, so when she saw my ad for a nanny, she jumped at the chance. Beth came from a large family and had experience with younger siblings, so she was perfect for the job. We agreed on pay and hours, and she moved in the next day. Beth worked as a waitress on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays. On other nights, we ate together. After a few weeks, Andy became very comfortable with Beth, especially when she read him bedtime stories. "Beth, I really appreciate you going the extra mile with Andy," I said one evening. With his mom not around, he needs all the stability I can give him. Beth smiled. "I know about you and your wife. Your mom filled me in on the details in case Carol tries to grab him. I can't believe she'd just leave you like that. I haven't known you long, but you're one of the most caring men I've ever met. You clearly love Andy to death." Carol got confused about what really matters, and now she's listening to others who convince her that the grass is greener. "I hope you're right," I replied. "Either way, it'll be over in 40 days, and it can't come soon enough." Little did I know, my life was about to shift drastically. In less than a week, everything would change. You see, I'm a silent partner in the accounting firm where I work. I brought in so much new business that they made me a 15% partner. I wanted to keep it quiet, though, because I didn't want to be known as one of the owners. That way, I could see how the employees really felt about the company. My latest success was landing a deal with an overseas clothing manufacturer with factories in 5 Asian countries. I met the owners at a party a year ago and shared some of my ideas. They were so impressed that we met the next week to discuss the partnership. "Dan, I like the way your firm works," one of the prospective owners said. "You go outside the norm and bring a personal touch. We need someone to set up a similar system at each plant, so we can manage them all from one overseas office." Although they were upset that I wouldn't personally handle the overseas operations, I assured them I would monitor everything closely. After signing the contract and shaking hands, the celebration began. I had been working on this deal for 9 months and couldn't wait to get home to share the good news with Carol. But when I arrived, the house was as empty as its heart. Beth and Andy came in about 20 minutes later with Chinese takeout. I can't keep this in any longer, I thought. I have to tell someone. "Forget dinner. I said to Beth. We're going out to celebrate tonight. Wear your best dress. We're going out in style. My bosses had made reservations at the best restaurant in town, and they sent a limo to pick us up at 7:30. I quickly shaved, showered, and got dressed. I'll get Andy ready so you have more time, I told Beth. By 7:15, Andy and I were ready. I saw Beth coming down the stairs, looking stunning. I hope you don't mind, she said. I didn't have anything special, so I borrowed one of your wife's dresses. It fit her perfectly, but it was a little short, given that she was taller than Carol. Do you think it looks okay? She asked. You look great, Beth, I replied. I opened my mouth in disbelief as the bell rang. The three of us were seated in the back of the limo just as Carol drove down our street. What the hell was all she could say when she saw them all climb into the limo. I wonder what's going on, she thought, turning her car around to follow us. She watched as we got out of the limo and entered the restaurant. This bastard, he's taking them to the best place in town, and when I wanted to go earlier, he said we couldn't afford it, she blurted out. And who the hell was that girl in my dress? We had a wonderful night. I was the guest of honor, and there was plenty of food and drinks. It was Beth who told me it was time to leave since Andy was tired, way past his bedtime. You're right. We better get going, or we'll never wake him up in the morning for school. I agreed. I thanked everyone for dinner, but as they shook my hand, they all looked past me at Beth, not just the men. Beth looked stunning tonight, and all the women eyed her with envy. They'd heard the story about Carol leaving to find herself, and Dan seemed to be wasting no time replacing her. They chuckled to themselves. We drove home in silence, since Andy fell asleep as soon as we got into the limo. I carried him upstairs, undressed him, and put him to bed, kissing him on the forehead. Good night, I whispered. Downstairs, still in my tuxedo, I saw Beth enjoying a glass of wine at the kitchen table. I want to thank you for tonight. You didn't have to come with me, I said with a smile. How could I leave you here alone tonight? Besides, I'm really enjoying your company, Beth replied, smiling. I never knew your job was so interesting, and all the people seem to really like you, including me. You make me feel like part of your family, even though I'm just a nanny, she added softly. I could feel my heart racing, and my body's response was unmistakable. I quickly tried to hide my growing desire. It had been so long since I had felt real passion, especially after the disappointing experiences with Carol. I wanted to take Beth to my bedroom, but I knew I was still married and had to stay faithful to Carol, no matter what. Tonight was magical, but my head is spinning with all the things I want to do right now. But, to my dismay, it's not going to happen tonight, I told her. Maybe if things were different, but they're not. So, I need to take a cold shower and go to bed. I kissed her cheek as she hugged me. It was 2:00 in the morning when I felt Beth climb into bed with me. By the warmth of her body, I could tell she was naked. I wanted to say something, but she placed a finger on my lips. I know we can't do anything today. I just want to be near you, she whispered as she hugged me. The next morning, I woke up alone. I found Beth downstairs dressed, making breakfast for the three of us. No one said anything. Carol was out of her mind. Here I am, trying to figure out what I want out of life with Dan, and he's already kicked me to the curb and found some __, she said, slamming her palm on the table. She had made the mistake of mentioning this to Karen, who had told her that all husbands cheat on their wives, and that tonight they should go out and celebrate her newfound freedom. Carol didn't feel like partying and really wanted to talk to me, but I was always at some other damn meeting. Later, Carol and the group met up at Tony's, and as usual, it was packed. After a couple of drinks, most of their company headed home, but not Carol and Karen. A couple of good-looking guys were trying to claim Carol, and Karen was already making out with one of them. The other guy had Carol on the dance floor, and when the slow dance started, she melted into his arms. His warm hands slid all over her body, and Carol felt herself slowly succumbing to his flirtations. It had been a long time since she had been with a man, and this guy was stunningly handsome, with the body of a Greek god. He wanted her as much as she wanted him. She never stopped him when he kissed her while dancing, nor when he led her to the corner of the dance floor and pinned her against the wall. However, she should have stopped him when he ran his hands under her dress, fondled her breasts, and pushed her thong aside. Yes, she should have stopped him, especially since Dan's hired private investigator was taping the whole thing. The four of them went back to Karen's place, and although Carol was now lying naked on the bed next to him, she finally came to her senses. "I can't," she said, her voice trembling. "I just can't," she repeated, staring at him as if hoping he would somehow understand. "I'm still married, and I still love my husband no matter what," she added, ignoring his objections. With that, she shut him out, and he left her alone. That night, Carol took one of 2 cold showers, trying to clear her mind. "I have to get my head and ass in order," she told herself. But what was happening around her, beyond her control, was beginning to change her life, and not for the better. The next morning, on my computer screen, I saw pictures of Carol. The last one showed her with Karen and 2 other people entering Karen's apartment. I emailed them to my attorney and instructed him to start gathering the papers, but to hold off until Monday. "It looks like she's finally made up her mind," I said quietly to myself. I had hoped for something different, hoped to meet Carol again, but now it was no longer possible. "I'll take care of the Asian project myself," I told my superiors the next day. "I need to get away. This will give me time to clear my head and sort things out." "They're all set to launch on the 12th, a week from next Tuesday," they asked. "Can you be ready?" "Give me 2 days to get my affairs in order and get settled with my apartment, so I have somewhere to send my stuff," I replied. "I have 2 more people to talk to today, and if everything goes according to plan, I'll be ready." That afternoon, I assigned my staff to take care of all the unfinished projects. I sketched out the paperwork to give my mom power of attorney and told Keith to file the papers for Carol the following Monday. "I'll be safe in the air while she's being served," I said to myself. That evening, I went home to a house that wouldn't be mine when I returned from across the ocean. The sadness of it hit me all at once. Carol and I had chosen that house together. It held so many memories, good ones. Now, all of that would be gone. I was quiet at dinner, and Beth, sensing the tension, thought she was the one who had done something wrong. "No," I told her, "I just have a lot on my mind. We'll talk after Andy goes to bed." By 10 o'clock, the house was silent, and we sat across from each other. Beth spoke first, breaking the stillness. "What's the matter, Dan? If it's about that night, I'm sorry. It won't happen again, I promise." "Beth, it's not about that," I said. "Remember the company party a couple of weeks ago? Well, I've decided to take on some overseas work. Andy, and I will be leaving early Monday morning. I have an important question for you." I saw Beth's face crumple as her eyes filled with tears. "Do you want to come with us?" I asked. Her tears turned into a smile, and before I knew it, she was in my arms. "Yes," she said, "I'll come with you." "Do you have a valid passport?" I asked. "I renewed it last year when I went on a cruise with my college friends," she replied. "Well, that's perfect," I said. "You'll need to pack everything by Saturday because they'll ship all our stuff ahead of time. Just leave enough clothes for the weekend and travel clothes for Monday. Tell your family and friends, but don't let Carol know until we're in the air. I'm not sure if it's totally legal for me to just take Andy with me, but I'll do it anyway. I'll answer any questions when we get back." Later that evening, I met with my mother. I explained everything to her and gave her my power of attorney. "Carol will probably be okay by Monday afternoon, but I want you to put the house on the market next week. Keith will send you the papers I'm sending to Carol. And if she has any questions, just tell her to talk to him." "Are you sure that's what you want, Dan? Don't you want to try to work things out with her?" my mom asked. "She made her own bed, and now she can sleep in it with whoever she wants," I replied. "I'm done." "Are you taking Beth with you?" she asked, pushing for the last bit of information. I don't know exactly where we're going yet, but she makes me smile and keeps me sane. Other than that, I might have some real feelings for her. That's all I'll say. I paused. We'll be back Sunday night, so you can say goodbye to Andy.